Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, today I am going to discuss a few more SEQs of personal identity. In previous lecture, I discussed some important SEQs such as methods of identity, corpus delicti, Hess's rule, Gustafson's criteria of teeth, and medico-legal significance of teeth. Similarly, today I am taking some more important SEQs, and the first one is age, the medico-legal importance of age, and along with that, B part will be ages of medico-legal importance. So there is a difference between the two. So first one is age is a parameter to determine identity, and what is its medico-legal importance. So that is evidence of age is required by the courts when a case or dispute is brought to them by a victim, they want to determine, they want the exact age of the person. So, and in cases like criminal responsibility, to determine criminal responsibility, which means how much intention is found in the act of the accused, because no crime is complete without intention. So law gives weightage to intention along with the action. So this component of intention and action together will determine the criminal responsibility of the accused, that how much his mind contributed to this crime. For that, age is very important, because below certain age, like 7 years, there is no criminal responsibility, hence there is no punishment. Now again, this age is important in judicial punishment. When awarding punishment, the court has to see the person accused is adult, then court can give full punishment. But if it is under 16, he is under 16 or she is under 16, then punishment will be not like that. It may there are juvenile courts, special courts, and the accused or criminals are sent to special places where rehabilitation takes place and where their parents can also visit frequently, and so that is a different type of punishment. So for that, age is important. Now in cases of kidnapping and rape, if victim is under 16, that will fall under rape, even if sexual intercourse has taken place with consent of the victim. Even then it will be considered rape because of age. So age determination is important. For marriage there is certain age, and below that age marriage is not allowed. And also to consider a person major, that means he or she is adult, there is an age like 16 years for female and 18 years for male. So this is very important again in legal matters, whether the person is adult or not. If he is not adult or not major, then he may not be able to do certain things which he can do after being major, like getting ID card or driving license, etc. Then there is an age of employment. So no person under 14 is allowed to work in a factory or workshop or a labor job. Similarly, in case of infanticide and criminal abortion, determination of age is important. In cases of impotence and sterility, age is a factor, because under certain age, like below puberty, the person is considered impotence, impotent and sterile. Also, as a witness, a person is not considered witness if he is below certain age. And of course, in personal identity, this age determination is very, very important. For further details, you will consult the book. This is discussed in Parekh. Next is ages of medico-legal importance. So these are, as you know, age is divided into two parts, or two, you can say, phases. Number one is intrauterine age, and number two, extrauterine age, which is from birth to death. So medico-legally important ages will start right from conception and will be spreading over whole lifespan till death. So first I take up intrauterine phase of age. It starts from conception, like date, that is date of birth. Then it is divided into three phases. Phase number one from day 1 to 3rd week. This is pre-embryonic or ovum phase. Now phase number 2 is from 4 to 9 weeks of intrauterine life. So this is embryo stage, and organogenesis takes place in it. Phase number 3 is from 10 weeks up to 10 lunar month, that is up till delivery, and this is called fetal stage. So what is the importance of intrauterine life? If abortion is done before organogenesis, it is called iskate hamal, and it is a less severe crime than iskate janin when abortion is done after organogenesis, and it is equal to killing of a human, a full-fledged human, and punishment is more than that of iskate hamal. Now coming to extrauterine life, there are ages of importance are: number 1, birth date, that is day 1 when a baby is delivered, that is very important. All the counting starts from that day. Then ages 3 to 5 years. In this age, boy or girl is sent to nursery or school. Then another important age is below 7 years, from 1 till 7. So there is no punishment for any offense committed during this age, because the child is considered that he has no intention. So that is why even if he does a crime, it is without intention. So there is no criminal responsibility and no punishment. Now from 7 to 12 years phase, there may be some intention, so maybe there may be some punishment if it is proved. When a child also under 12 years can't give a valid consent, so if he visits a doctor, his guardian or family member will give consent for him. Now 13 years is start of puberty in female, and 14 years is start of puberty in male, and 16 years and below, child criminals are not given punishment. Cases are brought to juvenile courts. So that I have already told you. Then below 16 years, a girl, a female, sexual act with her even with consent is considered rape under law. So that is an important age. Then 16 years age of majority or adulthood for boys, for girls, and 18 years is for girls. So they can get their ID card and they can cast vote at majority. Then at 21 years, they can get light duty driving license, and at 22 years they can get heavy duty driving license. So at 27 years is generally the upper limit of employment. After that, the government may not give someone employment. Now 55 years is age of retirement, but in some medical sector it is 60 years in public sector and 70 years in private sector. Also at the age of 60, a person in Pakistan is considered senior citizen and he gets some discounts and facilities and some special treatment. So he is facilitated. So these were few ages of medical legal importance. So next important question is, if you are a forensic examiner and police brings you a bundle of bones or skeletal remains, so what information you can get from examination of this skeleton, and which you can mention in your report, because you will issue, you are required to determine identity and age and sex, etc. All those parameters of identity. So the answer to this question in the book Parekh is given on page 120, chapter 6, and this is in section of autopsy, medical legal autopsy. It's not given in identity. So please note this, page 120, chapter 6. So what will you do as examiner? First, the medical examiner, doctor, will prepare a complete list of bones along with photograph of each bone. Then the bones are cleaned and arranged in anatomical manner, and reconstructed skeleton is photographed. So when you arrange them in anatomical order, it becomes a skeleton, and then you will take a photograph. This examination is difficult and it is a teamwork, so a doctor will get the help of anatomist, dentist, anthropologist and radiologist with medical legal experience. So this is kind of teamwork, but doctor has to prepare the report and get help from these people. So following headings, you will obtain this information from skeleton under the following headings. So there is a list of headings. Number 1, whether the bones which are brought to a doctor are of human origin. That means whether they are human or not human, because someone can bring animal bones. So as you have anatomist and radiologist, so that will they will help. Number 2, if human bones, then do they belong to same person? So again, this is a difficult job, but it can be done by matching with ante-mortem records with the help of anatomist and dentist of bones and teeth. Number 3, age. how you will determine age. So experts will, what will they do? They will, they know, they have the knowledge of ossification centers, they have the knowledge of development of teeth, temporary teeth and permanent teeth. They have the knowledge of skull sutures, at what age these sutures erupt and what age they unite. So, and changes in old age and other changes in skeleton which are found on bones. So this is all discussed in the book also. Parik, you can study there for further details, as you have already been taught these things and you have appeared in the test. Number 4 heading is sex of that person. From the bones, how will you determine sex? So some bones like skull, pelvis, mandible, sternum and sacrum give very useful information. So the question usually comes in exam is, how will you determine or differentiate between male and female by examining pelvis, or by examining skull, or how mandible, sternum and sacrum help. So all these questions are given in both books, Parik and Nasib Aman, and there is a table, so you can study there for details. Number 5 heading is race, how to determine race. So anthropologists are experts to determine race. So what they will do, they will study, examine teeth. Their specific features are different in different races, and they will also study skull, their cephalic index they will study, and so that will help to determine race, because certain Negroes are long-headed, they are called dolichocephalic, and Mongols are broad-headed, they are called masticephalics, brachycephalics. So these things are also given in the book. Number 6 is to determine stature. So if it is full skeleton, then it's easy, you will add few centimeters of soft tissue, then it will give you stature. But if you get the parts like femur or humerus or bones, then you have different formulas which are also given in the book. You can see it from Parik. Then to determine identity of that person. So from all this previous examination, you will come to know whether the person is a child, or person is male or female, or whether he is adult, whether he is young or old. So this type of information will help in identity. But the main method to determine identity will be more scientific, like DNA testing, and that will surely determine the identity of that person, that skeleton. Then what are special features on that skeleton that may be there? They are maybe bones are cut or sawn or broken by animal bites, because if the dead body was in open, then the animals can come and they eat soft tissue, and then they can also injure bones. Now, what can be cause of death in this case? Also, it is difficult to determine, but you can look for some clues, like whether there is a fracture of skull or fracture of hard bone or ribs. So that may give you some indication about cause of death. Then knife scratches on bones may point out some mechanical injury, or bullet found, or any other foreign body, especially bullet, if it is found there, that will help to determine the cause and manner of death. A chemical analysis of bone will detect metallic poisons if it is a case of poisoning. If the person died due to poisoning, then metallic poisoning may be detected by chemical analysis of bones like arsenic, lead, mercury. Next is time since death. How much time has passed since death of this person? Now this is also difficult, but generally a person, if it is on ground, is died on ground in open, then animals may come and eat up soft tissue and he may be skeletonized even in one day. But if there is no animal or he is buried, then it may take some time, like 3 months, to be skeletonized. But it may be old skeleton. So what are signs of recent skeleton formation or old one? Now if bones are foul smelling and rancid, that means it may be a recent case of skeleton formation. So but if the old bones, if it is long time has passed, they will be dry, light, fragile, and marrow cavity, bone marrow cavity is also dry and free of fat. So that was about this question, how bone or skeleton help to determine identity. Next is nuclear sexing. So what is nuclear sexing? This is helpful in determining sex in doubtful cases, mutilated bodies and fragmentary remains. So what are doubtful cases? So when you study the sex, parameter sex, you come to know that there are some definite cases of sex which you can, by just looking at the person, you can recognize whether the person is male or female by looking at his or her facial features, hair and other signs, secondary characters which are visible like beard, etc. But there are some cases in which sex is doubtful. The person may be bisexual, or he may be he is neither male nor female, or what you call intersex state. So then we have different ways to determine the sex, like external examination, internal examination, biopsy of the gonads if they are present or which one is present. Then nuclear sexing is one method. Then study of chromosomes. So what is nuclear sexing? It is method of sexing cells. So whether cells are chromatin positive or chromatin negative. So chromatin is a material which is abundant or more in females. So any females are considered chromatin positive. That is the principle of this nuclear sexing, that chromatin materials of two sexes are different. So females are labeled as chromatin positive and males are labeled as chromatin negative. Now we have two types of chromatin bodies which are mainly found in females and less in males. Number one is Barr body and number two is Davidson body. So what is a Barr body? So these were described by Mr. Barr. These are minute condensation of nuclear membrane. Its diameter is 1.2 to 0.7 micron. Its shape is plano-convex. So in females, Barr bodies are found in 40% or more of her cells. So females are considered chromatin positive. In males, 10% of cells are less. So males are called chromatin negative. Now, tissues used for identification of Bohr bodies are skin biopsy materials, buccal scrapings, cartilage, bone marrow, and nuclei of smooth muscle cells. You can see the pic of Bohr bodies, and you have been shown also in practical in lab Bohr bodies and Davidson bodies, and you can see where arrows point out, that is along nuclear membrane condensation. This is Bohr body. Now, what are Davidson bodies? It is thin stalked drumstick like projection of polymorph nucleus, that is WBCs in females. Its diameter is about 15 microns. It's present in 6 cells out of every 227 cells. Now, these can be studied from blood stains. So, these are Davidson bodies. So, as you know, this is nuclear sexing, and these help to determine the sex in doubtful cases. That was about nuclear sexing. Next question is intersex states. Now, what is intersex states? These are states in which male and female characters coexist in varying proportions in same individual. So, what are causes of intersex states? This is due to defective development of cells at some stage in early fetal life or defective germ cell formation. Now, they can be classified into 4 groups. Number 1, gonadal agenesis. Number 2, gonadal dysgenesis. Number 3, true hermaphroditism. Number 4, pseudo hermaphroditism. So, what is gonadal agenesis? This means the primary sexual organ have never developed, they are absent. This is determined in very early fetal life. So that means ovaries and testes are not present. So this is chromatin negative. Number 2, gonadal dysgenesis. Here the external structures are present, but testes and or ovaries fail to develop at puberty. That means they may be present, either testes or ovaries, but either one of them will be present, but they don't develop, they remain small. So example is Klinefelter syndrome and Turner syndrome. So what is Klinefelter syndrome? This is in boys, they grow normally, but puberty is delayed. There are 3 classical features: small and firm testicles, gynecomastia, and sign of enanchoidism, that is long arms and legs and scanty pubic and axillary hair. So these with Klinefelter syndromes are chromatin positive like a female, and sex chromosome pattern is XXY. So you know generally the males are chromatin negative, but these males are chromatin positive. Now other example is Turner syndrome, it has three main features: sexual infantilism, short stature, and congenital anomalies such as coarctation of aorta, color blindness, renal abnormalities, and osteoporosis. So these are seen in girls. So what is sexual infantilism? Manifested by primary amenorrhea, sterility, lack of breast development, scanty pubic hair, infantile external genitalia, uterus and fallopian tubes, and streak ovaries with no ovarian follicles but fibrous tissue. So nuclear sexing is chromatin negative like a male, and her sex chromosome pattern is XO, that means 45 chromosomes instead of 46, and she is sterile. So in both cases chromatin material is important. In females, if chromatin material is present, that becomes Turner syndrome, and males, if chromatin material is if in females, if chromatin material is absent, then it becomes Turner syndrome, and in males, if it is more present, then it becomes Klinefelter syndrome. Third is true hermaphroditism, that is double sex. So, and 4 is pseudo hermaphroditism. So this double sex means the person is having both primary sex organs, testes and ovaries. Both are present. It is a rare. So external and internal genitalia of both sexes are present. Nuclear sexing is usually female, that is chromatin positive, but may be male. There is hypospadias and cryptorchidism and inguinal hernia. These are frequent findings. Number 4 is pseudo hermaphroditism. In this condition, there is a lack of clear-cut differentiation of external genitalia, while internal genitalia are of only one sex, either ovary or testes. So labeled male or female accordingly. That is, if testes are present, then the person is labeled as male, and nuclear sexing is XY. And if ovaries are present, then nuclear sexing is XX, so it is female. External genitalia may be opposite. So a female with ovary may have a small penis, and if a male with testes may have enlarged clitoris. So that don't matter, only the primary sex organs they matter. The medico-legal importance or complication created by these two conditions like hermaphroditism and pseudo-hermaphroditism arise in situations like marriage, inheritance and civil rights, where they have to be labeled as male or female, and accordingly decision has to be taken. With that, I conclude my lecture. Thank you very much.